feels like I'm discovering the vacated target narratives all over again, and I'm honestly really excited. I've already upset a lot of people with my first thoughts on it, but here we go. So we're going to start from the top and work down. This isn't going to be an hour-long video or anything, but it might be a little longer than it usually is. Feel free to come back later, but do come back. Not just because I need the watch time and the view, because I do. This is what I point people back to when I get questions later. Why do you think this? Could you explain that? It's here. Like, at least the basics of it are going to be here for why I like player X or Y, especially when it comes to rookies moving into year 2. I'm an essayist, not a blurb writer, right? Take me for what I am, YouTube. If I say something that you've heard something different, I'd be very interested to read other research on it. But so far, it seems like a typical volume versus efficiency argument, and I'm running to where my normal conclusions go to on that. So on that broad view, wide receivers see their biggest and really only consistent and significant target share increase going into their second season. And that's across the board, whether it's target share, snap share, routes, expected points, no matter how much you want to, or what stat you want to look at. Second year is where players elevate if they're going to elevate. This isn't a new observation, but it does come with your friendly Pahowdy reminder that if we're looking at the average, it's a lie. However, when we're talking about something like target share, there's actually a pretty tight distribution in terms of players that see escalation or acceleration over that 20% target share in year 2, around 14 to 17%. That's your golden rookie range of target share for those who are going to get better in year 2. Now, if you're looking for the extreme jumps, so players who jump 10% in target share, you're mostly looking at players with lower draft capital who had bad stats in their rookie year. Jacoby Myers jumps to mind most recently. And so that's really an expectation of opportunity based on draft capital argument. And you're looking for players that jump from 14 to 17% up to that range of 20% target share. I'm gonna get this out the way early. If you're looking for signal, which I think is just general nerd code for does it correlate to stats, I'm not going to explain R squared. Efficiency stats don't predict, like across the board. There is some work by Blair Andrews on RotoViz, and as far as I know, like Blair Andrews is like my work crush, even though we've never met. He doesn't do Twitter a lot, and that's where I live. But I love his work. Like, he has a great way of looking at things, and I think he's produced some of the most actionable and interesting content I've seen in the Dynasty space since Sean Siegel. Well, just other than Sean Siegel, to be honest with you. But he once looked at receiving fantasy points over expected, which is just a type of efficiency stat, and pointed out that rookies who do efficient work in that particular stat form better hit rate groups going into year 2. So if you're efficient in this way, in receiving fantasy points over expected, you are in a better group of players that are more likely to escalate in target share. And see how that's a much better way of looking at these things. It's not, does it correlate? Because efficiency is never going to correlate to more volume or points at all, because it's, I don't know what this means. It goes up and down, not randomly, but it's not sticky, and it has relatively little predictive power. But you can learn from it. Normally when people just say, where's the signal, bro? And they're talking about an efficiency stat, you already know they have not done the work. It doesn't have signal. That's the point. The routes metric I'm hearing most often for the rookie class, especially this year, is targets per route run. Will help you. It can help you. It can be useful. It's an important point if it is a relatively relevant stat. So it's important to note that not all changes in these stats are equal. Now, if you get more routes or a higher route rate, or if you get more routes as a percentage of your overall team routes, which we'll talk about in a second because people got mad at me for even considering looking at it, that is going to have a disproportionately higher effect on your target share the following season. Because routes are essentially where targets are coming from. Targets are where points come from, routes are where targets come from. See how we pummeled, we're digging down into the sources of where volume comes from, is essentially the nerd game at this point. So borrowing some research from a guy I met on Twitter, here, hey Ronnie, what we can say, and I think I ultimately agree with what he's coming away from his own research here, is that a change in your target per route run is not where a change in your target share comes from. It's a change in your presence on the field, which is interesting because most rookie wide receivers decrease or maintain, at best, their route rate from PFF. They're not getting a higher route rate the following season, as a rule across the board in general. So your route rate isn't going to improve, but your presence on the field. So too long didn't read takeaway, TLDR for the youthful among you. Wide receivers see their largest volume jump in their second season. The primary cause of seeing a larger percentage of teams' routes per game, or just a larger presence on the field, is having been on the field more the previous season, not earning more targets per route. Targets per route run increase because of your relative availability on the field, much more so than you are capable or not capable of earning a target per route. It's not measuring their ability to get that target so much as describing who is being specifically brought onto the field to be targeted broadly. Target share increases are mainly and disproportionately a result of a player's presence on the field. And if you want a player who's going to be more likely to be on the field more often in year 2, you're looking for a player who's more likely to be on the field in year 1. Now, the examples for this kind of roll off the tongue and also show some of the concerns of players who are not participating as much in an offense, from whatever means you want to look at it, versus having a higher targets per route run. Tyreek Hill, for example. He presents a great example of a player who's gone on to have a great fantasy career in terms of how many points he scores all the time, who had a large target per route run, but a relatively smaller role in the offense. But that's not a surprise for a very late drafted utility player who wasn't even defined as a wide receiver or a running back. He didn't get a lot of college playing time, and I remember that rookie season where there was an open competition between him and 2 other wide receivers, both of whom I liked more because I'm an idiot, and they had more experience playing wide receiver. The team definitely invested time easing him into the role, and in his rookie season he was used most specifically in a very particular way, creating this higher yards per target per route run and lower percentage of overall team routes. Now let's talk about that stat a little bit because I made Twitter mad, which is just kind of a hobby at this point. Like an idiot, was interested in where some of the differences come from, especially where PFF doesn't have, and they don't have to, but they don't have a glossary of every word and every specific term they use. But where I'm used to doing my own stats, I get nervous when I don't know what a pass play is. And I don't know what a route is, really. I thought I knew, and then I didn't know, because when you're looking at a player's participation on a per route basis, like the percentage of team routes that a player gets from PFF, you're actually not looking at the percentage of routes that were run. You're looking at a percentage of routes that the team ran, which is weird because the team doesn't run. And so there's a specific definition where it's routes where a target occurred, essentially. So on any individual play, 3, 4, 19 players running a route. That isn't counted as 19 routes, that's counted as one route because it resulted in a target, not necessarily a reception. So you're removing sacks, you're removing fumbles, and they may even, I don't know how artisanal they get on this, remove like play action passes. Either way, on a game where around 120 on average routes are run by the wide receivers and the tight ends and the running backs, a team average will be something like 20 to 29. It looks more like passing attempts, but it isn't coming directly from passing attempts because those are a legacy stat and they're calculated with a common sense understanding of if a ball was attempted to be passed. Anyway, to get off it, I didn't know that before I got into it. I was just interested in how much of a team's routes is a player accounting for, because that's where my brain works. Now I get some, actually having been shouted at by a few different nerds, I actually get some of the objection, like isn't that just describing the scheme that the team plays in? And I get it from this perspective. You don't divide a player's snaps by all the snaps all the other players got on the team, because some of those happen simultaneously. I get it from that perspective. It's not directly representing the player's overall role on that offense, but it is representing their role in relation to the rest of the team. And so it's not meaningless, and if I find use in it, then I'm just going to use it. I don't care. Because if the team's scheme is so drastically different, so unique, that it can't be compared to other teams, then so's his targets per route run, and so's his yards per route run, and so's his target share, to be honest with you. If they're not somewhat comparable, then none of these stats are comparable. I think that's a fair statement. Route percentage, if you ever see it on my forums or my tweets or in this video, and that's what I'm calculating. It's percentage of routes they ran per game by the number of routes all players ran per game on a team level, not the stat that you'll see from PFF or for most people, because there's this weird artisanal team routes calculation. Apparently, I just don't have that. I don't know it. Just to go off on a rant here, by the way, a little bit. This whole thing's a rant, I guess. But if anyone wants to know where's the signal when you are stating an opinion on this or asking about my opinion on this, just ask them why they're not using target share then. Because target share and target share per game equals or beats the signal testing of all route data. It beats yards per route run, it beats routes per the route rate, and it beats routes per pass attempt, and it beats kicks the snot at targets per route run. Like, why aren't you just using target share if signal is all that matters? Clearly we're using this information to try to better understand how well players compare and how well they performed to try and make up a narrative based on a solid foundation of how much more likely they are to do better in the future. Or just points per game. Points per game beats it. Anyway. So, too long didn't read version. If you're looking for a player who's going to increase their target share into year 2, which is the most common year it happens and the biggest volume jumps that do happen in general, then you're looking for a player who has more route percentage or is more involved in the offense, whether it's on a route or a target basis. Players who elevate in volume in year 2 from that list, who got at least over 10% target share, so that it's not just all the randos as well, average an 18% targets per route run. The average of those who increase in target share have a lower targets per route run. Whereas in route percentage, as I'm calculating it, the average for the group is around 14% of the team's routes per game, but the average of the players through that group in the first 3 rounds that elevate in target share is around 16% of route percentage. So if you're looking for a player more likely to increase in volume, in target share, in whatever the following season, you're looking for the player who's already more involved in the offense, and you could also use snap percentage for that, by the way, then you are looking for a player who is efficient at earning targets per route. Not that that's not good, or doesn't say potentially positive things about them. But I'll note that both Chris Godwin and Tyreek Hill, both of the players since 2010 who stand out on that over 20% targets per route run, but below 17% target share, they were also both below 10% target share. They weren't already involved heavily in the target element of the game, whether it's through whatever individual context of those seasons. The fact that Christian Watson was so involved in the offense on a target share basis, like pretty damn close to 17%, and yet was earning routes at a disproportionately high rate on a per route basis, because I think that's why his snap share is so low. It's like at 55% for the season. But I think that highlights a potential. It definitely means that he compares more poorly to those who increase in target share and do better for fantasy. It does not mean he's not going to do things. He's going to be a year 2 wide receiver who elevates in volume, scores touchdowns, gets yards, and is impressive on the field in a real football context. I don't think it looks like he's a red herring outside of that top through group of rookies in this year's class who's actually going to be Tyreek Hill or Chris Godwin. And if I was going to pick one from the group, it would be Treylon Burks, then George Pickens, then Wan'Dale Robinson, because of the value disparity, and then Christian Watson, and then Jahan Dotson. If in terms of preference where they are at in terms of their dynasty value and their comparison to players who actually did that, like Chris Godwin and Tyreek Hill, that's the order I'd put them in. Again, that's not a just go out and trade for these players or get rid of Christian Watson, but it is an accurate representation of how I go about the process of preferring one rookie over the other. In in their off-season. But it doesn't matter, because it's the 2022 off-season, which means really it's just all going to be about running backs. Anyway, thanks for checking out the video. If I ever manage to get this edited down into an uploadable format. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Really appreciate it. I really, really do appreciate the view. You've got no idea. See you in the next one.